you, and justice will arrive for you.
The dentist maintains his wife's death was an accident. He will appeal his conviction. Jim Krasula, CBS News.
Grisly discovery amid the wildfires in Greece.
Fire officials say 18 burned bodies have been found in a remote area in northern Greece. Wildfires there have been burning out of control for 4 days. No details on the victims, but they were found along a popular route for migrants crossing into Greece from Turkey. Vicky Barker, CBS News, London.
Dow down 21. This is CBS News.
Hire with minimal effort and max speed with Indeed. Their hiring solution platform helps you attract, interview, and hire candidates efficiently. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
With news on WAUK The Shaw, I'm Stuart J. Waddles. Dangerous heat is set to impact the area in the coming days, with the National Weather Service issuing excessive heat watches, warnings, and advisories across Wisconsin. Temperatures in the 90s, accompanied by high humidity, could create a heat index nearing 100. The peak of the heat is expected tomorrow, followed by another hot day Thursday. Relief is expected this weekend, with temperatures dropping into the 70s. Cooling centers will be running in most communities. In addition to the Republican candidates, a substantial influx of people is anticipated in Milwaukee for tomorrow's debate. Among them, protesters aiming to voice their opinions near Fiserv Forum. Pre- and post-debate events are scheduled for Republicans, contributing to the expected crowd. There will be road closures and a no parking zone Wednesday around the Fiserv Forum. With news on WAUK The Shaw, I'm Stuart J. Waddles.
Ron had a tax problem he just couldn't handle on his own.
I owed the IRS taxes for over 5 years, but I didn't have any money to pay the taxes.
Those years cost him dearly.
Most of it was fees and interest. It was horrible.
Ron finally called in the pros.
I called Optima Tax Relief, and boy, am I happy I did.
The leading tax resolution firm, Optima, is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. They've resolved over $1 billion for their clients. Ron was overjoyed.
They settled my account with the IRS. I was ecstatic. They are a lifesaver. They are. I am so happy.
Take Ron's advice and call Optima now for a free consultation.
Yeah, don't do like I did and wait. Call Optima Tax Relief. Do it now. You'll be ecstatic like me.
Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Think you'd like working with us at Civic Media? We're having fun and moving fast to preserve hometown radio across Wisconsin. If you have the right skills to join our team, let's talk. Civic Media is a proud equal opportunity employer committed to diversity and inclusion, along with the growth and development of all current and future employees. If you're interested or are part of an organization who wants to know more, go to our website, civicmedia.us, and click on the Careers tab. You are never far away from your favorite radio station. We're always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic.
I saw it go, I saw it go, I saw it go, I saw it go.
Is that word?
Innovative.
Innovative?
Innovative. Whatever. You can say it both ways.
I saw it go, I saw it go, I saw it go, I saw it go.
I think it's it indicates.
Indicative? Is that the word you were looking for?
That is a good word, Kristen Bry.
I saw it go, I saw it go, I saw it go, I saw it go.
A friend wouldn't make fun of somebody like for knowing a word. See, this is what I'm talking about, people. Kristen Bry does not believe in friendship.
Moving Wisconsin forward, one joke at a time. This is Kristen Bry with As Goes Wisconsin.
Yada, yada, yada.
Hello, Wisconsin!
All right. Kind of a different topic than normal for this morning, but how much did your car cost you? And I don't even know. I mean, the truth is, I'm thinking back on my car right now, and I know what my monthly payments are, but I actually, looking back at it,
Don't remember.
off the top of my head, don't remember. Because it was like, all right, well, what am I going to know? If I'm leasing, how much am I going to owe for how many months? Because you're not paying the full cost of the car.
Right.
But I'm curious as to what your current car cost you, because as of right now, there is only a single model that costs less than $20,000.
That's unreal.
Isn't that wild?
Yes.
There's only one new car left under $20,000. It's a Mitsubishi Mirage.
Does it have wheels?
It does have wheels.
Okay, good.
But I'm curious, just for context of how much more expensive things are, just in general, what did you pay for your car? 844-967-2789. And I guess also then, does this make you want to hold on to that car for as long as possible?
Drive it until the doors fall off.
Because a Mitsubishi Mirage was the cheapest new car on the U.S. market last month. And I think it's, if public transit's not your thing, and most of our places, like, it's not an option.
Right.
Like, we don't have, unless you live, like, the East Coast is pretty good, but most of the state, most of the country, to be able to get around the way you need to get around either takes a lot of time if you're going to take public transit,
for sure,
or is actually just not possible. And so for the most part, we've built a lot of our state, cities, country as a way that you need to have a car one way or another. So, but as of, so Cox Automotive found that Mitsubishi Mirage was the only new model going for less than $20,000 last month. And its average selling price is $19,205. But the middle of the road new car cost as of July 2023, middle of the road. What do you think it was, Jane?
Oh, I'm afraid. 32.
Higher.
36.
48.
Is the middle of the road?
It's the middle of the road. It up 30% since
Wow.
2019.
Wow.
Yeah. And used cars are no better. The average July price for a used car was $27,000, which is also a hike from a 30% hike from 2019. And this is a strain on the family budget. Like, you think about, I was looking this up this morning as far as what the suggested budget breakdown is for your monthly take home pay is this, and 30% should go to housing, and 10 to 15% should go to transit. And transit is not only your car payment, it's also gas.
And what about maintenance?
And maintenance, yeah. And if you get in an accident. But it takes over 42 weeks of median household income to cover the average cost of a new car. And on the top high prices, high interest loans are also now a burden, because a record 17.1% of new car owners had a monthly payment above $1,000 a month.
I can't even imagine.
I mean,
really
that's how much
can't.
you're supposed to be spending. Like, I was doing the math this morning, and if the median income in Wisconsin is around 67,000, at least according to this source. Sometimes I see different ones, but it's always somewhere between like 50 and 70. So that means your take-home pay is a little more than $4,000 a month, which means that's what you should be spending on, like, your rent or mortgage is $1,000 a month, not a car.
Right.
So I'm just curious, how much did you spend on your car? Not a good thing or a bad thing, but just as you're putting this in context of how much did you spend on your car now? And even more, how much did you spend on your first car, if you remember that? 844-967-2789.
Tom from West Dallas. Good morning, Tom. What did you shell out for your wheels?
Well, actually, I've never bought new. I never saw the point in it. So basically, my last vehicle, I traded in 2 pickup trucks for 1 pickup truck plus $5,000. That pickup truck I'm still driving. It's an 01. I had a problem with it. I took it into the dealer to fix, which I knew was a dumb thing, but I did it anyways. And I, for giggles, went in to talk to a salesman. I spec'd out my 2001 Dodge Ram with a diesel engine for a brand new one. Granted, this is 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
My truck, brand new, 4 or 5 years ago, with all the bells and whistles that mine had, $63,000
for all the bells and whistles.
And for everyone that my truck that I am currently driving has.
Oh, but just new.
But brand new.
Okay.
Also, I have been looking for another truck, but what I want is a diesel because I like my diesel. I pull a big trailer. I found a '98 Dodge Ram pickup truck, just like mine, but a few years older, used for $15,000.
Wow. Is that I'm guessing?
Granted, it looked like new, but it's used. It's a 22. That was a 24-year-old truck.
Oh, for a 24-year-old truck, yeah.
For a used truck, and I've seen them go anywhere between like $8,000 to $15,000 for a 20-some-year-old truck.
Yeah.
Wow.
That to me is insane. Also,
Well, it's also like, can anyone? Because Jane, you said you spent how much on your first car?
My first car was $8,000.
Which again, we'll adjust for inflation. I'll get the inflation calculator up. But like, do you think you could even find a car for less than $10,000 right now?
Not if you want
used?
wheels.
Yeah.
for used you can, but it's you got to look and see what you're buying.
Yes.
You know,
likelihood of lemon high.
Well, yeah, you're gonna
Right.
you're gonna end up throwing so much money into maintenance or getting it up to speed. Is that worth it then?
Right. Now I've also bought an 01 VW Beetle. I'll never buy a VW again. I loved my Beetle, but the things you had to do, you had to have special tools for it. I thought that was ridiculous. That I bought knowing that the transmission was not good on it. And
wait, what's wrong with the VW? Because I'm thinking about buying the VW Tiguan I drive now and buying my lease out. Should I not do that?
Well, I no.
Oh no, you
Tom
should
says
not.
no.
There's even a guy on YouTube, Scotty Kilmer, who he just slams VWs, talking about like windshield wipers. There's a computer that runs the windshield wipers. There's no need for that. And if your windshield wipers go bad, well, now you're spending a few $1,000 just because the computer went bad. But mine, granted, that was an 01. I needed special. I like to work on my vehicles, and I needed special tools to work on it for no reason.
All right.
I could just tell you too that it had the injection pump had plates on it, and one of those plates was leaking. Well, it had 3 normal bolts, and it had 1 special bolt that I had to buy a tool specifically for that. I'm like, why couldn't you just put 4 normal bolts? VWs used to be the people's car. They were simple to work on. Now, no.
Well, I don't think I'm trying to work on my car anytime soon, but I will take that into consideration for what I do with my purchase. But thanks so much for the call, Tom.
Thanks a lot, Tom. 844-967-2789, 844-96-party. Scott from Chicago. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning. Yeah, my first car was, I believe, about 4,000, needed about 1,000 repairs. Did not last very long. Second car, about 4,500, needed about 2,000 repairs, but that was also hybrid. And then my current car I actually bought from a friend for about 5,000, which was about 3,000 under market value. And I mean, it's going great.
All right.
But also my friend repaired his own car and really kept it up and all that. So yeah, I mean, anything under about 7 or 8, you're going to be putting in a few thousand in repairs.
Yeah,
for sure.
You're going to pay for it. I mean, that's like one way or another. You're probably going to pay over 10 grand, whether it's for the cost of the car. But yeah, I mean, to even think that like used cars that are in good condition are
few and far between.
Yeah, totally.
Few and far between.
Thanks for the call, Scott.
844-967-2789. Text here from the 262. Seems like in the near future, the average American is going to have to pick between reliable transportation or owning a home.
I mean, maybe. Like it's
so expensive.
It's so expensive of how you do both, or like like I said, you come back to a place where like you need a car. In most places, you need a car.
844-967-2789. Dave from Mequon. Good morning, Dave. We got about 2 minutes.
All right. Good morning. Well, my first car, I spent $6,000, and it worked very well. I was happy about it. I actually, fortunately, have a friend of mine who is in the used car business. And so I'm able to get a very nice used car. I never, other than one time in my life, I've never purchased new. I purchased generally used. And I actually bought a few cars during COVID when Hertz was doing the bankruptcy. And up picking up a couple cars there. They were just giving them away with almost no miles because nobody was driving them, and so I got lucky in that sense. But I would recommend, this is what I would recommend. I mean, some people, obviously dealers are going to always charge more than a private owner would.
Yeah.
And I always strongly recommend trying to find a private owner, just because the price that they're going to be asking is automatically going to be lower.
Yep.
And you probably will have a little bit of negotiating power in addition to that. And as long as the car's title's clean, you can get a Carfax, which is easy enough.
That's great advice, Dave. We got to go to a break, so I got to cut you off. But thanks for as always, for your call. We're going to come back with more of your calls and texts. 844-967-2789. How much did your car cost? Your current car, your first car? Because right now, you can't buy a new car for less than $20,000. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
A perfect day starts with perfect breakfast. Start your day with Brunch It Up. Our experts are serving up the ultimate brunch experience. Our menu is loaded with inventive dishes from chicken and waffles to cinnamon roll pancakes. Try unique cocktails like Brunch Bloody Mary with house-infused vodka. Come brunch it up over bottomless mimosas or a midday pick-me-up. Or with the whole family for an unforgettable Sunday brunch. Brunch It Up in Milwaukee, Brookfield, or Cedarburg from 7 to 3 on weekdays and 8 to 3 on weekends. Let's brunch it up.
Hey, this is Matt from Design Garden. Remember when the internet was new? Back then, you had to leave your house to start a business. Companies used to pay programmers bags of cash to get online. Now, small businesses can get online with a Facebook business page, or Squarespace, or Google My Business, or WordPress. But which tools should you use? Can you afford to go down the wrong path? Design Garden uses modern tools to build your website the right way. Find us online at design.garden. Again, that's design.garden.
Sometimes I just cannot believe all the storms we've gone through here. I can only hope that we'll be able to leave this house to you one day, baby. You're our legacy.
Planning for these disasters will make sure we're safe, and is the best way to protect that legacy.
Protect your legacy. Visit ready.gov/plan for the tools and tips you need to start your emergency preparedness plan today. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. An excessive heat warning begins at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning and continues until 9 p.m. tomorrow night. An excessive heat watch begins at 9 p.m. tomorrow night and continues until 8 p.m. Thursday night. 83 this afternoon under sunny skies, southeast winds 8 to 15 miles an hour. 69 tonight, mainly clear. High of 98 tomorrow. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height.
Little scoop, you know what I got. Well, I'm not bragging, babe, so don't put me down. But I've got the fastest set of wheels in town. When something comes up to me.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry. She is Jane Matnair, and we are talking about how much does your car cost you? Your current car, or maybe even your first car, although we have to adjust for inflation potentially, depending on if you're my age or Jane's age.
There's a big difference there.
But, and I'm asking this because I saw a headline this morning that there is only one new car left under $20,000. And it's a Mitsubishi Mirage that the average selling price is around $9,200. $19,200. And, you know, some of this is to do with the fact that America loves big ass cars.
and even bigger trucks.
And you're about to go to Europe and the land of tiny cars.
Yes.
And I always think about that the handful of times I've been lucky enough to go to Europe is just how little their cars are, which makes sense because there's so many of their cities are more compact. And so being able to actually get into parking spaces and getting around and the streets are more narrow. But America has an obsession with supersized cars. And so the fact is, with that supply and demand, car makers have ditched affordable compact vehicles. And you add on top of that pandemic-related supply chain snags, and you just have kind of created a situation where cars are really expensive.
844-967-2789, 844-96-PARTY. Rick from Wisconsin Rapids. Good morning, Rick.
Good morning. I appreciate the conversation that you're all having, and I just wanted to weigh in on it.
Absolutely.
Okay. So the first car that I bought was a Plymouth Duster, and I paid $700, and the body was pretty far along in its decrease, but that car ran forever. It was a good engine.
Yep.
It was a good deal. The car I have now is a Chevy Cobalt. I paid $3,000. I was out of budget, and I wanted to pay cash. I've had it for more than 2 years. It's a good runner. There's some other features that I'm not thrilled about. No air conditioning.
Oh boy!
And it would cost me a lot. But I'm very satisfied that for $3,000, and it's been running for more than 2 years.
All right.
That I got a good deal. But can I mention one more thing with the conversation?
Sure.
Or not? Well, I just want to tell you about an experiment I did. You were talking about the cost and how can people afford to have a decent car and to have a place to live and all that. I did an experiment when my last car went out. It was a Saturn, and the transmission went out, and it was already near 200,000 miles. And I said, I'm not going to fix it. And instead of buying another car, I went on bicycle for 5 years from the time I was age 59 to 64, even in the winter.
Wow.
Winter in Wisconsin Rapids, you were on a bicycle?
I was the nut that people looked at when it was 20, 25 below the wind chill and said, what is that guy doing?
I'm going to ask my parents. I'm going to say, did you see a guy riding a bike in Wisconsin Rapids? That was Rick.
And Rick, unfortunately, your line is not very good. You're kind of popping in and out a little bit. So thank you so very much for calling. Really appreciate it. 844-967-2789. That's 844-96-PARTY. Price from Texas. Good morning, Price.
Hey, I know you got people waiting. I'll keep her under 60 seconds. But our hybrid was about 24. That was a 2017 that we got new, but it was like the last one. We got it like the year after. It was they're trying to get rid of it. Our SUV was an older one, 2011, so that was about 12. And we had payments on that for a long time. We finally got them paid off. But one thing, just tell everybody. They're going to be and if you got a decent car, they're going to be sending you, hey, you want to trade in your car?
Yeah.
Don't do it. Don't do it because because used cars are so expensive now. They're just going to flip those cars and make money. It's better to keep that car right now.
I have
and my last, yeah.
Go ahead.
No,
Price.
go ahead, Price.
Right. Oh no, I just wanted to say this, but also with how expensive cars are and how expensive gas is and repairs and everything. It's a public policy failure for public transportation. Public transportation down here in Texas sucks. It's awful. I miss Chicago and I miss Milwaukee, even with the buses. The buses were way better. And also, like work from home, concessions have to be made because if people can't afford, if people have the internet at home and they can work at home, they should be able to because it's so expensive to commute.
Yeah.
And that's about it, man. Public transportation would help out a lot, but let's go. And that's it for me. Have a great day.
Thanks so much, Price.
Thanks a lot,
we
Price.
appreciate it as always. Well, and that's the situation I found myself in. So my lease is up in November. And besides starting this job, so it's been a little over a year now that I've been mostly commuting to Waukesha, except some days doing the show from home. But for the most part, I'm here. And but prior to that, I mean, it was the pandemic. And so I wasn't really driving a lot at all. And even when I got the car originally in LA for the first, we only had it for about 6 months before the pandemic started. So there's only like 35,000 miles on it.
Oh, wow.
So Mike, I got to the dealership and they were pushing me hard
I bet.
to trade it in, upgrade my lease to a newer car. And like they would, all the kind of little dings and stuff that they would just take care of.
Sure.
And I'm not a car person. So I'm like, okay, and I'm way too trusting. So I'm just gonna okay, whatever. Like, sure,
Sounds
like
good.
I'll bring but of course this is like the gendered part of my marriage. There's not a lot of it, but sometimes it comes up. And when it comes to like negotiating car stuff, definitely one of them. So Mike looked at everything. He goes, no, they're just trying to they want your car.
Yes.
They want your car so they can flip it and make a ton of money on it.
Exactly.
He's like, you've basically a new car. And I think we figured it out. Like I'd owe like $11,000 or something on it as far as where the lease was and versus now. He's like, you're not trading it in. You're going to buy this car. And so it's like, okay, I don't care. Then. Like, this is fine. As long as I get new snow tires so the baby's safe, like I'm fine, whatever. But that is exactly what Price said as far as, and the pressure is hard.
For sure.
These sales guys, man.
One last text from the 262. I drive a Honda Insight, think Toyota Prius size. My friends in England would call that their big car.
Yeah, see? All right. Well, when we come back, it is Tuesday at 10:30. So let's recombobulate with the one and only Dan Shafer, because we have a debate coming up on Wednesday, and he has thoughts. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
When the light turns green, she blows them out of the water like you never seen. I get pushed out of shape, and it's hard to steer. When I get rubber in all 4 gears, she's my little blue scoop. You don't know what I got. She's my little blue scoop. You don't.
Broadcasting to Waukesha at 101.1 FM. Broadcasting to Southeast Wisconsin at 540 AM. This is The Shaw, WAUK.
CBS News Brief. Breaking news from Atlanta, where former Trump aide John Eastman has just been booked and processed at the Fulton County Jail after an indictment accusing him of illegally scheming with the former president to overturn 2020 election results. Mr. Trump is expected to turn himself in Thursday. It's the day after Hillary for Southern Californians. They're still digging out from mud and debris. CBS's Carter Evans from San Bernardino County.
Neighborhoods buried in several inches of mud and residents left knee-deep in aggravation. Trees are going. Hillary packed a wallop for a region that last saw a tropical storm 84 years ago.
Newly formed tropical storm Harold has its sights set on South Texas. In northern Pakistan, military commandos and helicopters have now rescued 4 children from a cable car dangling for hours hundreds of feet above a ravine. 2 other children and at least 1 other adult waiting to be saved. CBS News Brief. I'm Deborah Rodriguez.
Your hometown radio, refreshed, keeping you informed, entertained, and connected on the Civic Media Network, civicmedia.us.
With news on WAUK The Shaw, I'm Stuart J. Waddles. The region will experience hazardous heat in the upcoming days. The National Weather Service has put out excessive heat watches, warnings, and advisories throughout Wisconsin. With temperatures in the 90s and elevated humidity, the heat index might approach 100. Cooling centers will be running in most communities. After scamming taxpayers out of almost $500,000, a Milwaukee woman has been sentenced to more than 2 years in federal lockup. Nate Wegehoff has more.
43-year-old Nikki Brown stole the COVID relief money by filing fraudulent federal unemployment claims across multiple states, including Wisconsin. She did that by coercing individuals to provide their personal information. The U.S. Attorney's Office says over $1 billion COVID relief dollars were scammed from the system overall.
With news on WAUK The Shaw, I'm Stuart J. Waddles.
US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
Jelly. Jelly adjective. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jelly. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
When you're high, you feel different. You think different, you talk different, you draw different, you listen to music different, but you probably knew that. Problem is, you also drive different, and not in a good way. That's why driving high is illegal everywhere. So if you're high, just don't drive. Make a plan to get a sober ride. Because if you feel different, you drive different. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Don't let biased algorithms or degree screens or exclusive professional networks or stereotypes. Don't let anything keep you from discovering the half of the workforce who are stars. Workers skilled through alternative routes rather than a bachelor's degree. It's time to tear the paper ceiling and see the stars beyond it. Find out how you can make stars part of your talent strategy at tearthepaperceiling.org. Brought to you by Opportunity at Work and the Ad Council.
Miss our conversations on air? Join the discussion on our social media channels. Find Civic Media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also find
Well, welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry. Jane Madnair is on the board, and that music means it is time to recombobulate with Dan Shafer. Now, Jane, you took issue with the fact that he now has special music also on Town Call on Wednesdays.
I feel that the bumper music gauntlet has been thrown by Luke Mathers and William Walters on Town Call.
Dan, I love how competitive you are with this. I'm really enjoying it, and I really enjoy the walk-up music as well. So I'm just really enjoying this all the way around.
Because what do they play for you?
They cut up a couple different things together. It's like a Twilight Zone type of intro that involves Bobby Portis quotes. So I really enjoy that as well.
It's a little kookier.
Okay, I feel way secure now.
Yes, I will say there's something very menacing and it's like the intro to you're like a character in a musical theater Broadway show that he's coming on stage with our music.
I feel like I'm really making an entrance with it, even though it's
dramatic. It's a big entrance. Yeah.
All right. Well, fresh off his vacation, you look refreshed and rested. Although I don't know, traveling with a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old, how rested you feel, but you were on vacation, so we can talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah. Vacation with young children is more of an adventure than any kind of relaxation, if I'm trying to put it as kindly as
yeah, that's a good way to say it.
Yeah.
But let's just cut to the chase as far as the biggest news in Wisconsin, I would say this week, is the debate that is happening in Milwaukee tomorrow. Wisconsin being on the national stage, as we typically are every 4 years, but this year even more so because of the RNC coming here, because of the first debate being here. We are going to be on site in the Deer District doing shows all day from Whitetail right on 3rd Street or MLK in downtown Milwaukee across from the Fiserv. Where are you going to spend tomorrow?
Well, I did get credentials to cover the debate.
Look at you!
So I am going
Good
to
for
be,
you!
I'm going to be down there as well. Yeah.
You're welcome to stop by and say hi to us. But so you're going to be in there.
I'm going to be in there. I'm going to be covering the debate. I'm going to be trying to talk to some folks. Just, Milwaukee is in the national spotlight, and Milwaukee is a city that is often very thirsty to have that national spotlight. And so I'm very interested to see how, the whole national media Republican campaign apparatus circus reacts to Milwaukee. I am interested to see how Milwaukee reacts to the national media Republican primary circus. I think the whole thing is just going to be absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, I would. What do you have predictions on how you think that dynamic will go?
I guess there's a couple different pieces of it. One is just what's happening on the stage. And so I'm kind of interested to see, both in terms of just the typical political pandering, but also just the type of commentary you might see from candidates about Milwaukee. I think many people are seeing this as a dress rehearsal, so to speak, for the RNC next year. And Republicans in Wisconsin often do not have very nice things to say about Milwaukee. Republicans nationally have questioned the legitimacy of our votes in Milwaukee over and over and over and over and over again. So I'm interested to see if that type of thing will make it, on the debate stage, or if you will see something else, if you see the type of, political pandering to the local audience, the obvious importance of the swing state, this wonderful state, this beautiful, this blah, 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 all the types of things. So I'm interested to see how Milwaukee enters the conversation on the debate stage. And I don't know, what are you expecting, I guess?
I don't know. We're obviously doing, like I said, we're doing shows tomorrow. So I'm doing a lot of my prep to tonight. And it's such, I'm trying to think, because of the last time there was a competitive, obviously, Republican primary was 2016, which for me, if I'm being totally honest, was before I got kind of like politically activated. Like I was still working in tech and kind of, read the news, but was not like following the news, and certainly that primary with bated breath as far as like it being my job, let alone something I was, I kind of just assumed at that point, like, especially once Donald Trump in 2016 got the nomination, I was more in the camp of being like, this is a joke, right? Of like the Don Oliver Trump thing. And so like, I would say this time around, paying attention to Republican politics as much as I have for the last couple of years, is still like a new experience of going through the actual presidential nomination thing for me. And so I'm excited to see it. I'm looking forward, I guess. Well, I think the main thing I'm really looking forward to is what's going to get higher ratings, Trump and Tucker, or the actual debate. And I think, honestly, like, I think that's going to be telling.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting. And I want to pull a tweet from a national journalist that I think really speaks to how weird the circumstances surrounding the debate are with Trump and all that. So John Dickerson from CBS tweeted yesterday, "You must sign a loyalty pledge to enter the debate that promises you will support the party nominee, even if that ends up being the person who skips the debate, in part because they would never make a blanket promise to support the eventual nominee." I think you had the circumstances surrounding this debate, because of all of those factors, it's just so undeniably weird. Like, of course, we're having the start of this campaign cycle, and it's all the pageantry and then the spotlight and all that. But it's just so weird. Like Trump is lapping the field and he's not going to be there. And even if he were to face a real challenge, he's not going to concede. And it's just the undeniable weirdness surrounding this whole primary and everything happening with Donald Trump. I guess perhaps we should be used to this strangeness by now after 8 years of the Trump circus, but it's still a new weird experience even now.
It absolutely is. And we're recombobulating with Dan Shafer, if you're just joining us. And I just can't get over the conundrum the Republican Party is in, and that he puts them in that they are walking this line of their bottom line is they want a Republican in the White House. And the bets they have to make of how they get there, and there is no clear option at all.
So here's another factor that I think is really interesting. So a lot of people who are not Trump supporters within the Republican Party are saying that he is not their best chance to beat Joe Biden, right? So that's a lot of their argument for just kind of the electability factor. Oh, maybe Ron DeSantis polls better. Maybe Tim Scott polls better. You can pick any candidate throughout the field. But what I'm suggesting here is he is probably their best chance to win, because if he is not the nominee, he's taken the GOP down with him.
Well, and that's what I mean. Like, that's the thing. It's like, there's no way, as long as he's not in jail or like actually has been convicted of any of his 91 counts that he has at this point, like, there's no reason for any of us to think that if he didn't get the nomination, which at this point looks like unlikely, that he wouldn't still run as an independent.
Right. Yeah. I wrote about this in a piece a couple weeks ago at the Recombobulation area, but I think one of the factors looming over this whole primary is the fact that Trump isn't going to concede, even if he were to lose. So we're kind of going through the motions, it feels like. I know Trump tweeted or Truth Socialed a couple of weeks ago, or X'd. I don't know where he is.
I don't know.
But he said, like, this debate is kind of the find out to see who's going to be his VP. And, I think
Which is not untrue. I mean, and that's a
some
kind of a
truth
good
to that,
transition
yeah.
to talk about, like, all right, so who's going to show up and how are they going to show up at out of the 8 nominees and the candidates who are going to be there, like who's going to go hard at Trump? We already know Chris Christie is absolutely going to. It seems like Mike Pence is getting more of a backbone, like since some of the indictments have come down. Asa Hutchinson.
Yeah.
But like, it seems like Vivek and Nikki Haley are just auditioning to get a cabinet position. And so like, who's going to say, because you have to admit, you have to imagine that they're going to ask about, was the election stolen? So what is everyone's answer going to be there? Questions about Trump's indictment, what their answer is going to be there. And like, so I think exactly you said, like who's auditioning and who's actually running for president.
Right. Yeah. Or who's just, I think the Chris Christie is of the world. And, you talked about Asa Hutchinson and Mike Pence, that like, well, they maybe will go after, but they're, they're very far down in the polls. So it's just like, I think typically in a debate like this, you would see a lot of, the pressure on the front runner with, kind of the rest of the field looking to overtake them. Now, there's a different dynamic here because of Trump. You can't alienate the Trump base, but you also can't, it's a difficult line to walk for a lot of these candidates. You think of somebody like, I think there's a lot of pressure on Ron DeSantis with this debate. Like, is he really going to go at Trump? Is he going to use this national spotlight to try to reverse the nosedive that he has been in for the past few months in his, and he's, even though he has been in a nosedive in the poll for the past 2 months, he's still way ahead of the rest of the field.
Which is true. But is it also just because he has better name recognition?
I don't
Do you
know.
think that has something to do with it? Because he's been talked
it's not
about a
like he has
lot
significantly
in the
better
national
name
news for like a
recognition
couple
than-
years.
But like, Mike Pence has good name recognition. Nikki Haley has good name recognition. Chris Christie, I just think he's basically, but I think the thing with DeSantis is he's kind of been running for the last couple of years. His re-election campaign for the gubernatorial race in Florida seemed like would lead right into his presidential campaign.
So here's my question. How much do you think his debate approach is now going to still stick to what got leaked? Or do you think they have a new approach? Are they going to screw everyone up because everyone's like, he's going to go after Vivek because that was what the leak said?
Wait,
or
I missed this. What was the
you were on vacation.
Yeah, I was vacation.
His political consultants on their website on axiom.com posted his debate prep last week.
What?
You really checked out. Good for you.
I was trying to be as offline as possible last week. Yeah.
So last week, the debate strategy memo was posted to their website for everyone to see. And I think they took it down, but it was up long enough for people to like most shows like this. Well, we didn't talk about it, but certainly other civic media shows talked about it. And so it was basically, don't go after Trump.
Defend him.
Defend Trump. Go after Vivek. What else was in there? But it was like, what? Who did you hire? Who did you hire to run your campaign? That this is the kind of mistake that they make. So my big question is, now that everyone knows what because then everyone, tore it apart as far as what the strategy, not only that it was posted, but that what the actual strategy that like the strategy didn't seem like, if you really are trying to win this thing, is this is what you're going to do? And so my question now is, do they stick with it or do they change course?
Man, that is amazing. That campaign, the history is going to really study this DeSantis campaign for how to just fumble a lead, fumble an opportunity. My goodness, this has been the most disastrous campaign that I can remember. It reminds me a lot of surrounding himself with just the most far right, super online people, and I think we saw a preview of that in Wisconsin last year with their Clayfish campaign, where she surrounded herself with a lot of like super online, ultra right wing people who eventually kind of tanked a candidacy that seemed pretty formidable on its face.
See, and my big question is, how long will it take Ron DeSantis to freeze into that awkward smile? It's just so unnerving because it's so unnatural. It's just
he's like the anti-Obama. He can't connect with anyone.
there's no warmth. There's no.
No.
It's remarkable.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we still got another segment to recombobulate with Dan Shafer. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about the debate. We'll talk a little bit about your vacation. Maybe talk about the tension in the Supreme Court. Maybe all of it. But we will talk about all of that and more. If you have any text questions for Dan, feel free to text them in 844-967-2789. That's 844-96-PARTY. We'll be right back.
A perfect day starts with perfect breakfast. Start your day with Brunch It Up. Our experts are serving up the ultimate brunch experience. Our menu is loaded with inventive dishes from chicken and waffles to cinnamon roll pancakes. Try unique cocktails like Brunch Bloody Mary with house-infused vodka. Come brunch it up over bottomless mimosas or a midday pick-me-up. Or with the whole family for an unforgettable Sunday brunch. Brunch It Up in Milwaukee, Brookfield, or Cedarburg from 7 to 3 on weekdays and 8 to 3 on weekends. Let's brunch it up.
From the kennel to the coop, whatever the season, Fleet Farm has everything to keep your animals happy and healthy. From training your pup to sit season to mastering those retrieval skills season. From clipping your horse for competition season to keeping the backyard birds well-fed season. And of course, loving your pets like family season. There's a reason people say, if Fleet Farm doesn't have it, you don't need it. Because we have it all. Fleet Farm, built for real life.
Hey, this is Lindsay Kindert at 540 WAUK The Shaw. At Civic Media, we love our local communities and want to share your stories. Submit your local event and we'll let our listeners know. Email me, Lindsay Kindert, at info@civicmedia.us. That's info@civicmedia.us.
Join the conversation with your favorite hosts or shows anytime. Follow Civic Media on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Share your thoughts on our social media channels wherever you are, whenever you want. The Civic Media network of local radio stations here for you.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. An excessive heat warning begins at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning and continues until 9 p.m. tomorrow night. An excessive heat watch begins at 9 p.m. tomorrow night and continues until 8 p.m. Thursday night. 83 this afternoon under mainly sunny skies, southeast winds 8 to 15 miles an hour. 69 tonight, mainly clear. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 72.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry. She is Jane Madnair. And we are recombobulating with Dan Shafer, as we always do, at 10:30, from 10:30 to 11 on Tuesdays. So one of the things you said in the last segment, Dan, about as we were talking about DeSantis' campaign and the 8 candidates who are going to be at the debate tomorrow, is, I think, a very real divide for both parties, which is the very listening, it's doing social listening, to the very online crowd of, and I would put you and I in there. I don't know, Jane, would you put yourself in being very online?
I'm pretty online.
You're pretty online.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to read a lot of stuff for this show and
For
stuff.
sure.
And that meaning pays hyper attention to the news, gets their news from social media, Twitter, TikTok, all those things, engages with it, engages in the different conversations, and I think is more polarized than the not online contingent of people who are just living their lives, lower news consumption folks. I would say probably people who, when it comes to the issues that they care about, are less fringe. And this is on both sides. And so I think, how do you as a journalist keep those straight of what's actually going on?
That's a good question. I try to also, in addition to just being terminally online, as I certainly am. Like to have a lot of conversations off the record with people who are not
Yeah.
terminally online. So I think that's part of it. But I also like to, just try to test the waters of seeing what types of stories truly resonate. And if people, don't necessarily understand this, like, I don't know, strange online debate happening around schools or, CRT or drag queens or whatever it is. I think
Yeah.
there are a lot of issues that are just soak up a lot of the attention of not just like people who are online, but people who are like very into cable news or just very into,
Yeah.
very into the news cycle generally. And I think it's, I think sometimes I'll notice like when certain friends who are not particularly political will jump in on an issue on Facebook or something like that. I'll be like, oh, this one broke through. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Or if I'll see something that people will be talking about, and I'm just like, oh, okay, this is actually breaking through, and not just something that people are battering around online.
And it's because I think it's interesting because I think about that a fair amount of who are you making this for? Like when I'm making a video or something like that, like, are you making it for the people who probably already know about this topic and who are likely to share it because it's something that they already agree with, or they already want more people to know about it? Or are you making it for like the people who have not heard about this at all? And so that's from like a content creation, news coverage story or side of it. But like, that's also different than when you're trying to make like policy decisions and what your right platform is and what you're running on and like because it's not that you can't say like the real people who are not terminally online, because obviously the people who are terminally online are real people, but it's like just because they're louder, are there actually more of them?
I don't know, but I think I'm thinking about this in the terms of the campaign decisions too. I think,
Yeah.
the Ron DeSantis campaign, I think a lot of people have criticized it for being too online. And I think if you look at Joe Biden's campaign in 2020, like I think he very pointedly tried to ignore his campaign tried to ignore a lot of the online noise, a lot of the Twitter conversation. And I think that was ultimately to their benefit, because I think it would cut through a lot of the circular debates that would be happening and kind of focus more on the bigger picture. And I think that's what you can ultimately get. But I think, circling back to the conversation we started here, which just the debate, I think the debate is something that can kind of break through the super online conversations that we've been having about this. And I think that's what, all of the non-Trump campaigns have to be viewing this debate as an opportunity to do, is to get out of both the terminally online spaces and the, diners and county fair spaces as well, is to try to reach that mass audience and really try to make a difference in the trajectory of their campaign. And I think that's what, thinking back to, 4 years ago when it was the Democratic field, I think one of the reasons that Joe Biden ultimately won the nomination is because he didn't get bogged down in the weirdness of that. I think campaigns like Elizabeth Warren's, who I was really interested in see where her campaign would go at the time. I think her campaign got, the attention of kind of like the Democratic staffer,
the young progressive who loved her, that's super online, like is very online.
Yeah. And I think the same thing is happening with the DeSantis campaign. And I think, I think Trump, by not being part of this is going to kind of miss a little bit of that. But I think also like he's just such a force of Trump as a entity that it almost doesn't matter. So so I don't know.
Well, I'll be interested to see in all the conversations you have, since you did get credentials to go to the debate tomorrow, when you report back on the kind of people who attended the debate, because it's not open to the public. Like you had to get,
you get invited.
I don't know if it was invited or exactly, but it's not like you can just show up, right? Like, and like I've talked to some people who are going, who like you have to be there at this time, and like I think it's a process, and so it'll be interesting.
It's not a Bucks game. You can't just buy a ticket and go. Yeah.
But I think it'll be interesting for people, for like you and other people who are going, to report back of like, is it a bunch of political insiders? Is it just people from the Republican Party in Wisconsin in general? But yeah, that's certainly something I am looking forward to. Are you going to stop by Whitetail so we can see you tomorrow?
Absolutely.
All right, good. Well, last thing, how was it to step in all three of the Great Lakes? Was it all in one day that you did that?
Yeah, it was in one day. That was so I went on a family road trip this last week. Wanted to get one in before school started. On the final day of the road trip, we were going to be driving. So we went to Mackinac Island, and then we were going to be driving back through the UP. And as part of that, I had this like dad goal of wanting to stand in 3 Great Lakes in one day.
You got to have goals.
Yes, exactly. So, I shout out to my wife for indulging this admittedly very stupid and somewhat time-consuming goal.
How much time did it add to the trip to be able to do this?
I think it only ultimately added about an hour for the day's trip, but it's an extra hour with a 2 and 6-year-old in the car is not nothing. So,
which lake was the coldest?
I think Superior probably, but Superior was beautiful. I had never been to Lake Superior before, so I was actually very excited to do that. But Mackinac Island with Lake Huron, and then drove up to Lake Superior, ended the day in Lake Michigan. So yeah, it was pretty
good job, Dad. We're very proud of you.
Sorry, too long.
All right, well, we'll see you tomorrow, hopefully at Whitetail, but we'll see you back on the show next Tuesday where we will recombobulate again with Mr. Dan Shafer. Bye, buddy.
It's on the street. The heat is on. I can feel the fire. The heat.
Wisconsin Decides 2024. The road to the White House begins here. You'll find complete coverage of the first Republican presidential debate all day on your local civic media radio station.
All the show hosts will be broadcasting from the Deer District in Milwaukee. Listen live starting at 8 a.m. Then join Todd Alba and Kristen Bry at 6 as they talk with state and national political experts.
Special live coverage of the Republican presidential debate in Milwaukee all day, Wednesday, August 23rd on your local civic media radio station and on the app.
It's easy to listen to your favorite local radio station anytime. Download the Civic Media app from the Apple or Google Play Store, then listen live or whenever you want from anywhere for free.
You're listening to The Shaw, WAUK 540 AM Jackson, W266DR Waukesha, and always streaming on the Civic Media app.
This is CBS News on the Hour, presented by Indeed.com.
I'm Steve Kathan. An ex-Trump lawyer is one of 2 co-defendants indicted along with the former president who turned themselves in this morning in Georgia. CBS's Cammie McCormick.
John Eastman said he was surrendering after he was indicted for involvement in attempts to overturn the 2020 election in Georgia. He says the charges should never have been brought, and it represents the crossing of a line against petitioning the government for redress of grievances. His lawyer says he wouldn't be surprised if Eastman is in jail right now.
Trump says on social media he'll surrender to authorities Thursday. Overseas now on the story of a dramatic rescue going on in Pakistan. CBS's Vicki Barker.
2 of 6 children on board a broken cable car in a remote mountainous region have just been winched to safety. But 4 other children and 2 adults remain trapped in the gondola, which is dangling 900 feet above the ground.
And some scary moments at a Los Angeles hospital hit by a power outage in the wake of Tropical Storm Hillary. CBS's Allison Keys.
Many of the patients that had to be moved were on ventilators, and LA Fire Department Captain Cody Wireeater was asked how patients were brought down the stairs in zero visibility with no working elevators.
Very carefully, very coordinated. Huge thing is teamwork.
He says the neonatal unit was also affected, and there was a live delivery in the middle of all this.
They're clearing mud in a lot of places in Southern California and Nevada after the storm. Kyle McCullough believes the big building his father owns in Oak Glen is a total loss.
One day it was going to be his dream to open it back up for the community, but I don't think that we'll be able to fix it.
Says the hope was for it to be turned into a restaurant. Odyssey, New York meteorologist Craig Allen is tracking a tropical storm in the Gulf of Mexico bearing down on Texas.
Harold, not going to have enough time to really become a major wind producer, but there's going to be a lot of tropical rain for the southern Texas coast.
Indiana's near total abortion ban is set to take effect within days now that the state's highest court has denied a rehearing in a legal challenge brought against it. Rebecca Gibran of Planned Parenthood says
Indiana's abortion restrictions target Hoosiers of color, indigenous communities, and those already marginalized by our healthcare system.
the NBA's New York Knicks are suing the Toronto Raptors, the team's head coach and a former Knicks employee. It's alleged that workers stole video and other scouting secrets to give to his new bosses in Canada. Checking Wall Street right now, it's a mixed bag on Wall Street. The Dow is down 99 points. The S&P is up 4. The NASDAQ is up about 75 points. This is CBS News.
If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Their end-to-end hiring system helps you attract, interview, and hire candidates all in the same place. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
Looking for more local programming? Check out our website, civicmedia.us, to see our entire lineup.
With news on WAUK The Shaw, I'm Stuart J. Waddles. It appears a settlement has been reached for several Waukesha County residents that sued their county government. The agenda for tonight's county board meeting lists an item that reads authorization to enter into settlement agreement in the lawsuits brought by Gregory Backus, Valerie Zorick, Jamie Shirley, and Nicholas Brock. The cases are related to properties involved with highway projects and compensation for the land. 8 Republicans are set to participate in tomorrow's debate in Milwaukee. Donald Trump will not be present, citing a significant lead in recent polls as his reason for skipping the event. Roads around the Fiserv Forum will be closed. The Imagination Station Playground in Oconomowoc has been closed temporarily after a mouse and a burrow hole were found. The city says they'll update people on their social media pages. With news on WAUK The Shaw, I'm Stuart J. Waddles.
Hey, this is Matt from Design Garden. Remember when the internet was new? Back then, you had to leave your house to start a business. Companies used to pay programmers bags of cash to get online. Now, small businesses can get online with a Facebook business page, or Squarespace, or Google My Business, or WordPress. But which tools should you use? Can you afford to go down the wrong path? Design Garden uses modern tools to build your website the right way. Find us online at design.garden. Again, that's design.garden.
It's so hot. Wait. Now it's going to rain? It is summer in Wisconsin.
As much as we love it, we love to hate it too. Find a forecast you can count on along with the in-depth details you need, only from the Civic Media Weather Team.
These extended conditions have led us into a flash drought. Sitting in these above average temperatures with minimal rain has swiftly altered the local climate.
Your weather and more for your part of Wisconsin.
On your local Civic Media radio station and streaming on the Civic Media app.
RPG came through the belly of the aircraft. We don't talk about the female combat wounded. These are our daughters and our sisters and our mothers. Wounded Warrior Project came into my life and taught me how to stand back up and get back in the fight. The truth is, I think we all have this strength inside of us, but until you're tested, you just don't know it's there.
See how Wounded Warrior Project empowers women veterans like Beth by visiting woundedwarriorproject.org/empowerwomenvets.
It's never personal, only politics. The Devil's Advocates.
Everything is on demand now. But there's something about that appointment watching of HBO that's still there.
It's also called the art of the tease, and that's how they get you.
Trying to think, what's my tease for tomorrow?
Kristen sets herself on fire. Tune in at 11:20, and then we'll tell you why.
Boom.
Moving Wisconsin forward, one joke at a time. This is Kristen Bry with As Goes Wisconsin.
Yada, yada, yada. Hello, Wisconsin! Hello, Wisconsin! Wisconsin. Welcome to the second hour, the 11 o'clock hour of As Goes Wisconsin on Tuesday, August 22nd. And it's been a minute since we talked about childcare, but
Yes.
just because we haven't talked about it doesn't mean that the problem in Wisconsin has disappeared. If anything, the longer we wait to address it, the worse it is going to get for more and more families and for the people who are providing childcare. So, here to give us a bit of an update on where we are, fill us in on his big trip to the White House last month on this issue, is Wisconsin State Representative of the 79th Assembly District, which is in Dane County, Representative Alex Joers. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm great. I'm so excited to be here. I'm a longtime listener, first time caller, so I'm so happy to be on the show with you. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you. So I guess take us back, because this was something like we obviously when it first came down, kind of at the 2:30 in the morning on that fateful Thursday. I came into the show pretty fired up. I think Representative Hong and I had a live stream where we swore a lot more than I could on the show that day. But you also gave a pretty passionate speech about this on the House floor, as your Republican colleagues were like, yeah, no, we're not going to do this. And so where does the passion for this issue come for you? Is it personal? Is it just because of what you're hearing from your constituents?
Yeah, it's both. I mean, I look at my 3-year-old right now and I love him, but I think parents are exhausted and looking for some way to make sure that they have quality, affordable childcare and that they can go to work. And so not only is it something that I'm dealing with, but it's parents across my district and definitely across Wisconsin. As you know, I'm sure you've heard that prices for childcare are going up, and the availability is not there. Over 50% of our state lives in a childcare desert, so we need to do something about it. That's why I was so passionate about it, and I'm looking forward to talking more.
Representative, I wonder sometimes, because with the approach of some of our Republican lawmakers, do none of them have children? None of them have ever had to have daycare?
Well, I don't know why there's the disconnect. I am one of the younger legislators, so I am dealing with the issue right now in my family, but I get a lot of pushback from folks that are not in favor of expanding childcare and say, well, it should just be on one parent to stay home. And I just don't think that's a reality anymore. And in fact, the facts say that 70% of Wisconsinites who have kids under the age of 6 are both working. All available parents are in the workforce. So it's not a reality. That's why we need affordable childcare in Wisconsin.
Well, and it would be interesting to see how in this, we started today's show talking about the cost of cars right now, and just the cost of everything, like across the board, whether it's, mortgage prices, car prices, daycare, food, like the cost of living for so many things has gone up exponentially more than wages, right? And I haven't seen a cross comparison to, if we think about some of the older gentlemen, because let's be honest, most of them are older gentlemen who do have kids, and maybe they did have a wife who stayed home that raised the kids, or even if they did have daycare, the childcare, if it's just less, it was less expensive because everything was less expensive. Rent was less expensive. Like the cost of living and a living wage was less expensive. And so just the actual cost of doing business and staying in business is more expensive, just like everything else right now. And even with higher wages, because like post-pandemic, it's not high enough.
Yeah, and I'll just say this, that 40% of single parents single parents spend 40% of their household income on childcare in Wisconsin. And if you look at folks that are making minimum wage, which I'll remind your listeners is $7.25 an hour, they're spending 83% of their income on childcare. So this is ridiculous, and we need to address it now. That's why we need to take up the governor's bill to push for this childcare affordability.
which we'll see what happens. But you were with the governor the day that he announced his request for a special session that is coming up in September. And so can you tell us, we haven't talked a ton about what that could look like or what he is asking for. So since you were there, can you tell us more about what, hopefully maybe they won't gavel in and gavel out, but what the hope is to accomplish with that special session?
Yeah, absolutely. They should not just gavel this special session out. They should take up this issue as people have been asking for. The governor announced in Milwaukee with the Little Green Trees Daycare Center that they were going to call us into special session on September 20th to take up a workforce package that includes the child care counts funding that my Republican colleagues stripped out. That was the paid family leave, creation of the program that we need, and then also investing in our higher education institutions. So really investing in families across the spectrum here. And I mean, I would encourage anybody who's listening to this to reach out to your legislator, even if it's me, and tell them to take up this bill on the special session day.
And that's just something that I think needs to be hammered over and over and over again. You need to call them. You need to call your representative so they know that you are paying attention.
And even if they still, I mean, because I think that's the thing. It's like, it's hard sometimes when we give the, call your representative, and then simultaneously say, but you're also in a gerrymandered district and they don't have to listen to you, which is why we want to get rid of gerrymandering. So it's like, do it even if they don't listen to you, which is just where we're at in Wisconsin.
Absolutely. And it's helpful for me to know people's personal stories so that I can continue to remind my colleagues why this is important.
And I think that's the important thing. It's one thing to call and say, this is what I want, but we all know stories more than numbers touch hearts, right? And that's what the thing, being able to tell someone's story of, I think about this when people leave me a comment in one of my videos or they write into the show and stuff of a personal story always means more. And then when there's an accumulation of personal stories, that means even more, to be able to take that and actually wrap your head around it versus 80% and percentages and numbers and stuff like that. So, well, on top of the special session that's happening next month, last month, you got to go to the White House to talk about this with other state-led lawmakers from across the country. So are you still reeling from that opportunity, or are you excited? What was that like?
It was very exciting to be at the White House with folks across the country. It was exciting, but also when I was talking with my colleagues from across the country, it is very different in a lot of other states. There are states like New Mexico that are doing a great job funding early education from 0 to 3. And even our state next to us, Minnesota, just made great investments in their child care and early education workforce. So, I want Wisconsin to follow that lead, but it was exciting to be there, but it is clear that we have work to do.
And when you talk to people from representing different states where they are making progress in this, have you asked them what worked as far as objection handling, and for the naysayers who are well, if you can't afford it, don't have kids, or all of the people when it comes to this issue who are on the other side of it and who aren't quite comprehending the economic argument of people. We want people in the workforce. We have a workforce shortage. We want women back in the workforce. All of the things as far as why this is good to invest in. This is good for everyone, especially even future generations of having kids, have, because it's not just babysitters, right? This is child education, early childhood education is that, it's education. And so did you get much insight on how they overcame the people who didn't want to do this?
Sure. I mean, even in Alabama, they were speaking about the business community and larger industries that, like you said, are looking for workers. They need people to work. And so the argument of well, parents should just stay home, that should be the answer, and we'll move along. If we want folks to enter the economy, and, usually it's folks with young kids, this is what we need to do. We need to invest in early education and make sure that kids from 0 to 6 or even past that into higher education are invested in each state. And that's how we do it.
So we just keep hammering it home, I guess. I guess in the conversations you've had, if there is in the special session next week, and we only got 2 minutes left, if they do gavel in and gavel out, what's plan B?
I mean, like you said, I'm just going to keep talking about it. And
Okay.
I know some people are going to get annoyed by me continuing to push this, but, my constituents are wanting me to say this, and people across Wisconsin are wanting us to address this in our legislature. And you know what? I think that my colleagues on the Republican Party are going to start hearing more and more about this. I just look at Lancaster, that is represented by Senator Mark Line, who just had a child care facility close. Parents are going to be frustrated with their legislatures across the country and across Wisconsin if they don't address this. So we're going to keep talking about it.
And there's a chance that everyone's up for re-election next fall, depending on what happens with this redistricting case.
Wouldn't
so maybe
that
they would
be
actually have to
something?
listen.
Shocking.
Yes, they need to listen.
They need to listen. All right. Well, Representative Alex Joers is the state representative of the 79th Assembly District in Dane County. It was so great to finally meet you. Welcome. You're welcome to come back to the show anytime. And thank you for continuing to talk about this.
I'll be back. It was so fun, and I'll keep listening.
We appreciate that. Call in. Just call in on a random Tuesday. All right. Have a great day. All right. We're gonna take a quick break. We'll come back in just a minute. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
On my way to where the air is sweet. Can you tell me how to get to Sesame Street? How to get to Sesame Street? How to get to Sesame Street? How to get to Sesame Street?
Hey everybody, how we doing? I'm Charlie Barons, inviting you to join me Saturdays and or Sundays at noon. It's a horse apiece, whatever you decide. We're doing the Cripes Cast, where we talk to people for and or from the Midwest, and it's more fun than a six-pack of Jolly Good. Okay, the pride of Random Lake, that Jolly Good is. Anyway, it's on your Civic Media station and the Civic Media app. And do me a favor, tell your folks I says hi. Okay, real good.
Direct from the Dairy State, it's Sharp Cheddar Weekends, a 3-hour block of Wisconsin-produced radio, Saturdays and Sundays from 11 a.m. till 2 p.m., featuring Raised in Wisco with Joel Clayfish and Danielle Fairman, the Cripes Cast with Charlie Barons, and Under the Helmet with the Gravedigger, Gilbert Brown. You can enjoy it by the slice or enjoy the whole darn thing. Sharp Cheddar Weekends is radio so fresh, it squeaks. Listen in on the Civic Media station or on the app. Radio keeps your community informed, entertained, and connected. It's what we're all about at the Civic Media network of local radio stations.
We're having fun and moving fast to preserve hometown radio across Wisconsin. This includes a commitment to news. Now we want to invite you to join Civic Media's exclusive Facebook group, Wisconsin Breaking News. It's a place to share your community's news and chat with others from across the state about it.
Join the Facebook group Wisconsin Breaking News today. It's the perfect companion to your local Civic Media radio station.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. An excessive heat warning begins at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning and continues until 9 p.m. tomorrow night. An excessive heat watch begins at 9 p.m. tomorrow night and continues until 8 p.m. Thursday night. 83 this afternoon under mainly sunny skies, southeast winds 8 to 15 miles an hour. 69 tonight, mainly clear. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 75.
When you gonna buy me a can-can? I've been waiting so long. When you gonna buy it? When you gonna satisfy me? When you gonna buy me a can-can? I've been waiting so long.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry. She is Jane Madnair. And there's very few things I miss more that I can't eat right now than sushi.
Oh, really?
That's the thing. Deli meat's kind of, mostly because the convenience of just getting a sub from like Jimmy John's or whatever.
Yep.
But it's not like I'm like, oh man, I'm craving that. I'm sad I can't have a turkey sandwich. But sushi, I do like sushi. So that's been the joke that like Mike is going to bring me a sushi boat into the hospital. And
after she comes.
But here is, but I'm not snobby, but I worked at a sushi restaurant when I lived in Los Angeles, and we had really good fresh fish.
So
and
from sushi.
So and I like sushi. Like I don't like a ton like sauces on it. I don't like it mixed with like a bunch of avocado and stuff like that. Like I like pieces of sushi and sashimi versus rolls. And so then you need to have pretty good fish in order to enjoy that. But it turns out most Americans not that snobby about their sushi.
That's kind of scary.
So listen to this. Kroger, which we know is like the massive, they own Metromark, they own Pick and Save. I'm pretty sure they own, depending on where you are regionally, they own that
something.
grocery store.
Yep.
Kroger is the biggest purveyor of sushi in the country.
Wow. Wow.
It sells more than 40 million pieces of sushi per year, according to the Wall Street Journal. Isn't that crazy?
They must have a good sushi team or something.
And apparently people are, I have always been like, that's a place where it's like, I will get a avocado roll. I will get something that is like sushi adjacent that doesn't actually have fish in it. But apparently people are buying it from there and not getting sick, that they keep buying it from there. But the company realized it was number one back in 2020. And in the past 3 years, ramped up its sushi offerings to claim even more market share. But it's not just Kroger. Grocery stores across the U.S. are basically investing in and benefiting from consumers choosing like a $9 California roll over something else that they would buy as far as like an easy lunch to go to a grocery store and grab. And then in general, sushi sales at U.S. retailers has risen more than 70% in the past year.
Wow. So
I guess maybe I'll have to, I guess grocery store sushi, not so bad.
Soon coming to a gas station near you.
That's the thing. It's also like at what point you're like, meh.
Again, it's just, boy, if you do it wrong or you have old fish, this can be bad.
And I guess if they're now that it's like, this builds a little bit more confidence as far as thinking like, well, they know that they're selling this much, so they're investing in it actually being pretty good. But I don't know, making that kind of mass quantities of it also feels like a dangerous game when it comes to raw fish.
I mean, that's not something you can repackage for the next day.
No.
Right?
No. You're eating your sushi.
It's got to be fresh.
And unless it's like something that's like a tempura roll, but none of that stuff is as good the next day anyways.
Right.
But are you a sushi person?
Not a chance.
None.
No. I did many years ago. I was with friends, I want to say in Boston, and I did a piece of tuna, which I think I swallowed whole.
Wait, you didn't chew it?
No, I just swallowed it.
You didn't choke?
No. And then I had a California roll with a little teeny piece of something in the middle, and that was fine. It was a veggie roll-up.
What is it about it that you're just...
It's raw.
Do you not eat cannibal sandwiches?
No.
Do you eat steak tartare?
No. Ugh. Bleh.
So
I'm really picky.
Are you a picky eater?
Well, I'm a baby. I don't like exotic things. I don't like, no.
Okay.
No.
You're like my dad. I remember the first time was when my dad and I were living in LA for that first like jaunt, and he had friends in San Diego, so we drove down to San Diego and we went to dinner. We went to a sushi we went to a restaurant where there was more stuff, and there usually is like sushi restaurants there you can get teriyaki and chicken teriyaki
things that
and
they
stuff
actually
like that.
cook.
Things that you actually cook. And he's a picky eater. And I just remember, and I had never met these friends before because they lived in California, but they were his age. And I just remember the woman bullying him.
Oh, really?
Just bullying him into trying a piece of like hamachi, like sashimi that had probably like a jalapeno or something on that. It's just, come on, Pete. Just come on, Pete. Like, just try it. Just try it. And I just will never forget. And I think he finally, because we were the guests, was like, fine. And so he just like took the one, and then she shut up and he moved on. But I don't think he enjoyed it.
Don't be a food bully. Come on.
And so yeah, you and Pete can have your
we'll
your
go get-
plain rice
that's-
with your potatoes and your bland chicken, and
that works for me.
Oh, all right. Well, we're going to take another break, but when we come back, we are going to talk to Wisconsin author Beth Amos about her journey to becoming an author, but also she has a book that came out last year, Death in Door County. She's got another one coming out in December. So talking about making Wisconsin a character and a backdrop
Very cool.
for mystery novels. And so stick around. We will be back in just a minute. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
I've been waiting so long. When you gonna buy it? When you gonna satisfy me? When you gonna buy it? I've been waiting so long. When you gonna buy it? When you gonna satisfy me? I like a can-hand, baby. Can-hand, that's for me. When you think about it, simply it's an ecstasy. I've been waiting so long. Where you gonna buy that candy, so many.
Your home of the Earl Ingram Show. Weekday mornings from 8 till 10 on The Shaw. 540 AM and 101.1 FM WAUK.
CBS News brief. Former Trump attorney John Eastman, indicted with the former president and others, has surrendered in Georgia.
Eastman allegedly pushed the plan to keep Donald Trump in power. He turned himself into Georgia authorities and was booked at the Fulton County Jail. He'll later face a judge on racketeering charges. In a statement, Eastman said, "I am here today to surrender to an indictment that should never have been brought."
That's CBS's Cammie McCormick. Overseas to Pakistan. Helicopters involved in the rescue of several people aboard a cable car still dangling and stuck 900 feet above the ground. Those choppers have been grounded now. Some patients had to be moved at an LA hospital after a power outage. A fire captain says
they delivered a baby up on one of the floors basically by candlelight, in a sense. They had battery-powered flashlights.
It's not clear if the problem was linked to Tropical Storm Hillary. Tropical Storm Harold has just made landfall on South Padre Island, Texas. CBS News Brief. I'm Steve Kathan.
You're listening to a radio station that's part of the Civic Media Network. Find more at civicmedia.us.
With news on WAUK The Shaw, I'm Stuart J. Waddles. Dangerous heat is set to impact the area in the coming days, with the National Weather Service issuing excessive heat watches, warnings, and advisories across Wisconsin. Temperatures in the 90s, accompanied by high humidity, could create a heat index nearing 100. The peak of the heat is expected tomorrow, followed by another hot day Thursday. Relief is expected this weekend, with temperatures dropping into the 70s. Cooling centers will be running in most communities. In addition to the Republican candidates, a substantial influx of people is anticipated in Milwaukee for tomorrow's debate. Among them, protesters aiming to voice their opinions near Fiserv Forum. Pre- and post-debate events are scheduled for Republicans, contributing to the expected crowd. There will be road closures and a no parking zone Wednesday around the Fiserv Forum. With news on WAUK The Shaw, I'm Stuart J. Waddles.
Whether it's a picnic in the park or a cool, easy dinner when it's too hot to cook, sandwiches in summer go together like peanut butter and jelly. And there's no better bread to build your sandwich on than Country Heart's Dakota-style 12 grain. Baked the old-fashioned way with whole grains and real honey, Dakota-style 12-grain bread has the flavor your family will love. Country Hearth Breads, baking our best for you.
Hey, this is Lindsay Kindred at 540 WAUK The Shaw. At Civic Media, we love our local communities and want to share your stories. Submit your local event and we'll let our listeners know. Email me, Lindsay Kindred, at info@civicmedia.us. That's info@civicmedia.us.
Wisconsin Decides 2024. The road to the White House begins here. You'll find complete coverage of the first Republican presidential debate all day on your local Civic Media radio station.
All the show hosts will be broadcasting from the Deer District in Milwaukee. Listen live starting at 8 a.m. Then join Todd Alba and Kristen Bry at 6 as they talk with state and national political experts.
Special live coverage of the Republican presidential debate in Milwaukee all day, Wednesday, August 23rd on your local Civic Media radio station and on the app.
Tired of hearing only one side of the story? You want news and information from people who, like you, know what it's like to work hard every day and still struggle to make ends meet? Then tune in to The Rick Smith Show every weeknight from 8 to 10 p.m. right here on the Civic Media Radio Network. Be part of the conversation. Tune in. Turn on.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry. She is Jane Matnair. A Wisconsin bookstore owner and cryptozoologist is asked to investigate a series of deaths that just might prove a fabled lake monster is real. With her rescue dog Newt by her side, Morgan goes on a hunt, but if she's not careful, she could be the next victim. That is the short description of the first installment of a new mystery series by USA Today best-selling author and our guest right now, Wisconsin author Beth Amos. How are you doing, Beth?
I'm doing great. Thanks. Glad to be here.
Thanks for, glad to have you on the show. So that is, as of, I just saw on your Facebook page, as of August 10th, Death Indoor County became a Death Indoor County has become a USA Today bestseller as of last week.
Correct. That is correct.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's so exciting.
Wow.
It is. Yeah.
And so it was about a decade ago that the last time you made that list, right? So which book was that for?
It was for a book called, I'm trying to remember for sure which one. I think it was Lucky Stiff. It was one of the Maddie Winston books. And actually the publisher had put it on sale, and that prompted a bunch of sales, which managed to get it onto the list a little higher up a little lower, I guess, on the list than this one hit. And it was my first time hitting. So that was fun. But yeah, it's been 10 years or more, I think, since that happened. So this was exciting.
That's very exciting. So before we jump into the different series that you've done, the different pseudonyms you've written under, just tell us a little bit more, because you're based in Wisconsin. How kind of your journey to becoming like a mystery novelist?
Well, I actually started out as a medical freelancer with my writing career. I was a nurse, and I always wanted to do writing and read a lot. And so I managed to segue some of my writing interests at the hospitals that I worked at into writing articles for their magazines and things like that. And that business grew. That was when I lived in Virginia. And then I ended up, once I sold my very first book, which was actually a Dean Koontz type of book, not so much a mystery, but more of a thriller, a paranormal thriller. I decided to step away from nursing for a few years and focus on my writing, and made enough money off of my freelance work for probably about 6 years to stay away from nursing. But I kind of missed it and the camaraderie of working with those folks. And I had an idea for a new series that I wanted to do. And my first 3 books, all of which were Dean Koontz type paranormal thriller books with HarperCollins. Before the 3rd book came out, HarperCollins did some shifting around in the whole publishing industry back then. This was in the late 90s, was kind of worried about what was happening with ebooks, and there was a lot of merging going on and selling going on, and a lot of authors were getting shifted around and dropped, and I was one of the people that got dropped from HarperCollins. So, and then about a year and a half later, my agent got frustrated and she decided to retire and leave the business. So my writing career kind of came to a screeching halt. And I had another project I was working on where I wanted to use the humor of the medical people that I've worked with over the years, because they're just some of the funniest people that I've ever encountered. You need to have a sense of humor to work in the medical field. That
Yeah.
it's kind of a dark sense of humor at times, but I wanted a way to utilize that in my writing, and I kept trying to make sort of a funny mystery series. And I had it set in Virginia because that's where I lived at the time when I started writing it, and it just wasn't working. And then I moved to Wisconsin. And as I got to know Wisconsin, I rewrote the book and put it in Wisconsin because Wisconsin's just quirky enough and strange enough and weird enough that it all worked. And funny enough. I mean, people in Wisconsin are funny too. They have great senses of humor. And I had gone back to work in nursing, working in the emergency department, which is a great source for characters and plots and all kinds of things. So eventually I got that first book written. Took me a while to find another agent, had one and fired him in the process. So it was about 8 years, I think, in between my third book with Harper coming out and the first book with this new series coming out. And that was with Kensington, which is a New York publisher, but a smaller family-owned publisher. And I had to come up with a new name to publish under because my own name, Beth Amos, was now dirt because my third book with HarperCollins hadn't sold very well because they dropped me before it came out. So they didn't do anything to market it or, sell. I mean, they basically did nothing. So the sales were terrible, and book buyers have very long memories, apparently. So they wanted me to come up with a pseudonym to publish under, market me newly discovered author. Plus I was working in the ER at the time, and I really didn't, my character is solving mysteries, and I didn't want my patients knowing that I spent my spare time thinking up fun ways to kill people. So it seemed like a pseudonym was a good idea. And I came up with Annalise Ryan because my son's name is Ryan and my middle name is Anne, and it was going to be initially just Anne Ryan, but they said that was too common. They wanted something a little more unique. So Annalise was my name in German class in high school. So I said, okay, Annalise Ryan. And they liked that. And Annalise Ryan was born. And she's doing much better in her career than Beth Amos is. So
That is so, but then there's also Allison Abbott.
Well, there
right?
is, because yes, about 5 books into my Annalise Ryan, Maddie Winston series, the nurse who goes to work for a coroner in a small town in Wisconsin. My editor there said, I've always envisioned a series that takes place in a bar, kind of like a Cheers setting with, characters that are recurring and they can solve mysteries. And he said, can you put something together like a proposal for me? And I said, sure. So I did. And he loved it. And then he said, we love it, and we're going to contract for a couple of books in this. And there's just one little catch. We need you to come up with a new name and a new pseudonym. And I was like, why? And he said, because Annalise Ryan and the Maddie Winston series was about 5 books in, and they weren't sure yet if it was going to take off or if it was going to tank. And then they didn't want the Annalise Ryan series to affect the new series. And they didn't want the new series, if it tanked, to affect the Annalise Ryan series. And they wanted another newly discovered author that they could pitch out there. So this time I got a little more strategic with my pseudonyms. And I know that if you go in a bookstore and you walk up to the mystery section, all of the A's are on the top shelf at eye levels. It's very easy to find and grab. I know that because Beth Amos was up there with one little book, and then V.C. Andrews had the whole rest of the shelf. But anyway, I was up there, and V.C. Andrews was dead at that point, but still writing. So I decided I was going to pick a last name that started with A. And so I came up with Abbott, A-B. That's pretty close to the front. And then I got a little sly about it and came up with a first name and a middle initial so that the initials for the whole thing were AKA, since it was another pseudonym, And so that was my little inside joke. And my editor got it right away. The minute I sent him the email with the new name, he sent an email back 30 seconds later and said, "Nice little trick. I love it." And so that's how Allison K. Abbott became born. And that series was a 6-book series, kind of planned that way, and then ended. So Allison K. Abbott's not writing anything anymore at this point. But Annalise Ryan went on to write 12 books in the Maddie Winston series, plus 2 spin-off books from that series. And then Kensington decided that they weren't going to do any more of those books. And I was once again back at square one. And trying to relaunch my career. So I spent the year of COVID writing a book that I thought my agent was really going to love, something different. I thought this is a chance to exercise my writing muscles and use some of the plots that I've been storing away. And so I wrote this book that I thought my agent was just going to love, and he absolutely hated it. And so I ended up shelving it. And it took place in Door County, and I had done a lot of research in Door County because I vacation up there a lot. And I decided, when we were talking on the phone and deciding not to do anything with the book he hated, we started brainstorming, and we came up with the idea. He said, "Well, what kind of things do you like?" And I said, "Well, I like books, and I like the X-Files, and I like, that kind of stuff." And that's how we kind of came about the idea of A Death in Door County. And so Wisconsin, as it turns out, has plenty of cryptids that we can play with and move around the state with. So yeah, that's how the series got started.
If you're just joining us, we are talking to Beth Amos, aka Annalise Ryan, aka Allison Abbott, who is a Wisconsin author. And so that is what I actually think is fascinating, because the story is the cryptozoologist and bookstore. It's also funny because I feel like ER nurse and author. So, but like you said, when you got to Wisconsin, like, what is it about Wisconsin, that was so different from Virginia that it itself is a character in itself that is ripe to write about?
Well, when I lived in Virginia, I lived in a bigger city. I lived in Richmond. The culture there is very much still the North versus the South. There's people there that still think we're fat in the war of Northern aggression. And it just has a different feel to it. And when I moved to Wisconsin, I moved into a very small town, like so many in Wisconsin. It's full of small towns, and there's a lot of rural farmland around. And there were things, in the newspaper, like you'd read the police blotter, and it would be, somebody getting ticketed for parking their tractor at the local bar, or, a cow running loose down Main Street, or, the number of bars there are in town as compared to the number of churches. And it's just the whole cheesehead thing, and unfortunately some of the alcohol culture. But yeah, it's very quirky and different, and it's friendly, super friendly. People are very friendly here. And that was very different from where I came from in Virginia. But I had lived in other small towns, and I think it was as much the small town setting as the Wisconsin setting.
And so with the book, so A Death in Door County, and then with how does that go? And how is that inspired then the next book that's coming out in December?
Well, the next book is actually taking place in Bayfield, Wisconsin, up around Lake Superior in the Apostle Islands, the Chequamegon Forest. Yeah, it's beautiful up there. And there's a lot of Bigfoot traditions and lore up there. And so Bigfoot will be the second cryptid that we're going to explore. And I'm already contracted and working on book 3, which will be taking place in Rhinelander. Can you guess what that cryptid's going to be?
Ooh, is it maybe going to be the Hodag?
Yeah, it's going to be a Hodag. So, yeah. You would do well in my cryptid trivia.
So what is the cryptid in Lake Michigan?
I guess you'd have to read the book.
I have to read the book. That's fair. But Bigfoot, Hodag, but the mystery of...
It's based on... I don't know if you can see this. The Loch Ness Monster. Yes.
Okay. I did not know that about Lake Michigan. That is
there are cryptids in all of the Great Lakes. There are myths and rumors and stories. So they have different names here and there, but there's all kinds of cryptid stories in the Great Lakes. And given their geographical structure, it's certainly possible that something is existing down there in the depths, and we just haven't seen it yet or haven't identified it yet.
That is awesome. So you're enjoying writing for Morgan. Morgan Carter is the main hero in this series. It's a little different than Maddie was in your last series, but it seems like she has many adventures ahead of her.
She indeed does. Yes, her and her dog Newt. She doesn't go anywhere without Newt. So yeah,
great dog name. All right, well, we have to let you go because we're running up against the break. But Beth, this was so fascinating. I have so many more questions about the pseudonym thing, but I'll have to ask you offline because that is like I didn't know that existed. They're like, no, we need you to be a new person so we can sell this book. Thanks.
Yeah,
And so,
it does make marketing a challenge.
Absolutely. So, A Death in Door County is available now. Death in the Dark Woods will be available in December. Beth Amos, thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Have a great day. All right, we'll be back after the break. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
A perfect day starts with perfect breakfast. Start your day with Brunch It Up. Our experts are serving up the ultimate brunch experience. Our menu is loaded with inventive dishes from chicken and waffles to cinnamon roll pancakes. Try unique cocktails like Brunch Bloody Mary with house-infused vodka. Come brunch it up over bottomless mimosas or a midday pick-me-up. Or with the whole family for an unforgettable Sunday brunch. Brunch It Up in Milwaukee, Brookfield, or Cedarburg from 7 to 3 on weekdays and 8 to 3 on weekends. Let's brunch it up.
If you care about animals or crops, you probably care how the weather could impact both.
It's summer in Wisconsin, and the success of your efforts often depends on knowing the forecast. Count on your local Civic Media weather team for all the information you need.
Crops' roots are also growing deeper in search for water, which is bad news because when rain finally falls, it will sit shallow and be absorbed in the top layers of the soil.
Your weather and more for your part of Wisconsin.
On your local Civic Media radio station and streaming on the app.
Larry, it's your mom. Did you know the Civic Media Network covers the whole state of Wisconsin? They can help your business get the word out, whether you want to reach a smidge of folks or just want the whole kit and caboodle. Call 608-819-8255. Okay then, bye.
Fear you may be missing out? We're always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app. Enjoy listening live or catch up by finding the podcast at civicmedia.us or wherever you enjoy listening to your podcasts.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. An excessive heat warning begins at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning and continues until 9 p.m. tomorrow night. An excessive heat watch begins at 9 p.m. tomorrow night and continues until 8 p.m. Thursday night. 83 this afternoon, under mainly clear skies, southeast winds 8 to 15 miles an hour. Tonight, lows around 69. Tomorrow, high of 98. For Civic Media,
there, and it is going to be hot this week, no matter where you are.
Dangerously hot.
Much of Wisconsin is going to have a heat index above 100 this week, and specifically for tomorrow and Thursday, likely the hottest days of the year they're expecting.
Oh, yeah.
So be careful.
I mean, we're talking about 111, 113. That's not the actual temperature, but That's what the heat index is going to feel like with the humidity and everything. So these are crazy, crazy temperatures. First and foremost, if you work outside, and I'm sure you already know this, but you got to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Mailmen, roofers. I just think of all the people landscapers.
Yeah. Post the mail. Yeah. Like you just said, mailmen, but like FedEx worker. Like it's
exactly.
So many people that like when you can't actually just, but also I saw something yesterday. I think Todd Elbow talked about this on his show yesterday. There's certain, because of the landlord laws, there's still like there's landlords who can forbid you from having an air conditioning unit.
Oh man.
And so there's certain people who just don't, we say like we're lucky enough to work in an air conditioned building, live in an air conditioning home, but there's a lot of people who still don't have air conditioning and like just have to rely on fans. Or maybe tomorrow's a good day to go see Barbie if you haven't seen it
Go
yet.
see Barbie, go to a library.
Yeah.
Go take a long, long, long grocery shopping trip.
Yeah.
Just to get out of the heat. And it's the same warnings, but I think there's value in repeating them. Don't take your dog with you tomorrow.
Don't leave your dog in the car.
Don't leave your dog in the car. Honestly, they can suffocate in minutes when it's this hot. Same with children and the elderly.
Yeah.
So if you have an elderly neighbor or an elderly relative and they don't have air conditioning, you need to check on them to make sure that they're going to be okay.
Well, and I just feel so lucky because I had a friend who asked me who lives they just moved from Houston to Rio de Janeiro, but that's a big jump. But she was saying, obviously, because they're on the other side of the equator, getting used to, what is winter for them right now is still not really winter, but she's used to the humidity because they lived in Houston for the last, 10 years.
And Houston's built on a big swamp.
Mm-hmm. But she's like, how's Wisconsin been with the heat? Like, have you guys had the same heat as Texas? And I was like, absolutely not. And, I do feel fortunate that we have like 2 days of this versus so much of the South this has been their whole summer.
Can you imagine
just day after day
Right.
over like 110 degrees?
And week after week after week. And I think it might have been a day that you were gone, Kristen, but in Arizona, the ERs were getting overwhelmed with people burning themselves.
Oh, you told me. Yeah, we talked about this.
Yeah.
When they fell on the sidewalk.
Right. It's just crazy.
And I don't want to end necessarily on a downer, but it's like if you track this summer and this over the weekend, it was the tropical storm Hillary with the hurricane that hit Southern California. We're dealing with the Maui wildfires. And we've had like these heat domes like across the country. But just a reminder that hurricane season basically starts now. So we're not even through what will be inevitably probably more natural disasters that are coming for the fall.
Yeah.
So
it's all related, folks.
Speaking of which, have you seen how hot it is in Europe where you're going to be going as of Thursday? Have we talked about that?
Not really. London looks a little chilly, upper 60s, lower 70s. It can really vary when you're in London because they've had some heat as well, and a little rain. So, but again, that's London. It's an island.
It is an island.
It is an island.
Let's talk more. Let's actually end on a happier note. Let's talk about your trip because this is the last day I'm going to see you until September 12th.
Yes.
Which is the longest time you and I have gone without seeing each other.
In over a year.
Maybe even more than that because before we were at the same place and I saw you daily.
At least, right.
For like a year and a half.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God. What am I going to do?
You will have Greg Bach.
I will have Greg Bach.
Will have
tell
Greg
people
Bach.
about your fun vacation that you're finally taking.
Yeah, we are going to London for about 3 days, and then we're going to go to Dubrovnik in Croatia, where they
Ooh.
filmed some parts of Game of Thrones. So it's a very, very ancient city. It's one of those old walled-in cities. We like old rocks, my husband and I.
Okay.
We like climbing on old rocks and looking at old rocks and talking about the history of the rocks. And I've talked to several people who have been to Dubrovnik, and they have all said that 3 days is about enough.
Okay.
And then we are going to the Algarve area of Portugal, which is like the southern coastline of Portugal, for about 9. So we try to do our educational portion of the trip because when we're in London, we'll probably go to the National Portrait Gallery.
Okay.
I haven't been back there for many, many years. And we like to hit some museums and do some cultural things and try and learn some things. And then for the second half, we're beach slugs.
That's nice. That's really nice.
Yeah.
But this is your first time leaving the country since COVID, right?
Since 2019. That was our last vacation was in 2019.
So that's got to be pretty exciting. Are you nervous at all you feel out of practice?
Well, I can remember back in the day when flying was actually fun.
Oh.
And flying hasn't been fun for a long time. Now it's just a pain in the neck.
What do you mean by fun?
There wasn't so much waiting. You didn't have to be there 3 hours ahead of time. You didn't have to wait although we have TSA pre-check and all that stuff, so we can get through some of the lines a little bit faster.
Well, and also I'm assuming he's not a U.S. citizen, that he's still
He's an English,
a
he's
EU
a
citizen.
great-
Yeah. So you guys can skip through those lines once you're entering Europe.
into England. Yep. And there's always the chance that one of my fellow passengers is going to lose their what, and I'm going to have to duct tape them to their seat.
Well, have you not been on a plane since 2020 at all?
No.
So you haven't really. So you've only seen how stories of how nuts
people are.
I would say in the handful of flights I've taken since 2020, there's only been one time that someone was nuts. So you don't assume that that's going to happen. It's one of those things where the reporting of it is maybe not proportionate to like how the percentage of it is actually still quite small.
Well, okay, I'll take that. I still think if it's going to happen, it's going to happen on our flight right next to me.
It might.
I'll have duct tape. I'll be good.
There you go. Yeah, just make sure it's in your carry-on.
It's all good.
All right. Well, tomorrow we will be on site. Well, Jane will be in the studio. I will be on site with Greg Bach at Whitetail, broadcasting live from downtown Milwaukee, doing a lot of debate stuff. Excited to hear your thoughts on what you want to hear. What moves the needle for you? Are you going to watch it all? But we will do that tomorrow. Make sure you tune in. We got a lot of fun coming up tomorrow. It's going to be a big day. So thank you for our guests today. Thank you to everyone who made it such a great show and calling in and texting in. And we'll be back tomorrow. This has been As It Goes, Wisconsin.